Hi, I'm Mike Bellevue. I'm the black powder editor for Guns of the Old West magazine. And today we're going to be shooting a rarity, the 1865 Spencer rifle. Now, this is a replica. It's made by Army Sport, which is part of Chiappa in Italy, and it's imported by Taylors and Company in Winchester, Virginia. This is the 1865 Spencer rifle. And the 1865 model had a few differences, but essentially it's the same rifle that goes back to 1862 when it was adopted by the Union Army in the Civil War. And this is a very, very cool design. In a lot of ways it was superior to the Henry, which was its main competition at the time. In one way it certainly is not. The original Henrys would hold 16 rounds. And even current ones will hold a dozen rounds of the larger ammo that we use today. Spencer's only held 7 rounds, but because they loaded through the butt in this tube magazine, they were considered superior because the magazine was protected by the butt. And if you use a Blakesley box, you were able to actually reload very quickly, and that was a box filled with tubes already loaded with the 7 rounds of ammunition that this held, that you could just dump in there and then push that follower back in and you were good to go. These were also used heavily in Red Cloud's war by the cavalry, mostly in carbine configuration but also in rifle configuration. Now this is a pretty interesting design, and it's rather different than the lever action rifles that we're used to. Because we're mostly used to the Winchester and then the Marlin design, which really is so similar to the Winchester. With this, it has a hammer that is not cocked when you work the action. So the hammer has to be cocked individually. So you would jack the hammer back, and then you would drop the lever, and as you can see, this actually has a rolling block action. And it's a pretty massive breech block. I mean, it's a very, very strong action. Run the lever again, of course it feeds a cartridge in, and then you're ready to fire. And then you repeat the entire process. Cock it, and fire. So, pretty cool gun. Originally it was in 56 caliber, and you can still get them in that caliber from Taylors and Company in Winchester, Virginia. Or you can get it in the more popular for modern shooters 45 Colt or 4440. This one happens to be 4440, and it really is a lot of fun to shoot. I mean, it's about the most fun Civil War gun you're going to find to shoot. Loading a Spencer is different than loading the Winchester or Marlin type lever actions that we're used to. The Spencer loads through a magazine here in the butt, and what you have to do is spin that magazine tube catch 90 degrees and pull the whole tube out. And then we're going to drop rounds right into the butt. We'll put them in nice and easy, and we're going to put 5 of these 4440s in. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now I'm going to take the magazine tube that we just pulled out, and we're going to reinsert it. Just push it right down and then twist it to latch, and we're all loaded up. We're shooting at an Evil Roy cowboy target from Action Target Systems. It's about 35 yards out from the firing line.
Low position was as important as load in 9 times. The loading drill taught not only the steps in loading the musket, but for the officers established a standard rate of fire for his men and his company. The drill would begin with the order,
Load in 9 times. Load.
The musket brought to the center of the feet in a snug but convenient
Handle.
location to
Cartridge.
handle the rammer and to place eyes on the muzzle. Hand to his cartridge box, which held the 40 hand-rolled paper rounds. With a cartridge between the thumb and pointer finger, place the cartridge to the mouth, using
Tear
teeth
cartridge.
to open the powder end of the cartridge. Bullet to the
Charge
front of the muzzle.
cartridge.
Dumping the gunpowder down the barrel, then squeezing the bullet into the muzzle.
Draw rammer.
Placing the tulip or head of the rammer upon the point of the bullet.
Ram cartridge. Return rammer.
In battle, many nervous soldiers would forget this and would shoot their rammers at the rebels.
Prime.
The musket is now eased in front of the soldier, muzzle down range at the height of the eye.
Shoulder. Arms.
In battle, every man was supposed to finish the loading process in 15 to 20 seconds. By the book, every man could shoot 3 rounds per minute. Each
Fire.
company of 90 muskets could fire 270 rounds per minute. Every regiment of 10 companies could fire 2,700 rounds per minute. By the Middle War period, the average strength of a regiment in the Army of the Potomac was 400 men. Firing 3 rounds per minute, a veteran regiment could easily expend 12,000 rounds in a 10-minute firefight. At the Battle of Gettysburg, the high tide of the war, Mr. Lincoln's Army of the Potomac had grown into a perfect killing machine.
A field test of a 19th century Gatling gun is about to begin.
Rifleman, your target is the red target. Gatling gun, your target is the blue target. Order arms. Load. Come to the ready.
While the riflemen reload, the Gatling gun storms into the lead. But now the boot's on the other foot. The Gatling gun reloads and volley fire from the rifles brings them back into contention. The Gatling gun gets back in action, but does it have enough firepower to replace 15 men?
Cease fire on the firing line. Cease fire.
The smoke of battle clears. The only thing that matters now is the number of hits. Who will get the decision? Victory for the Gatling gun. The 15 riflemen made 45 hits. But the Gatling gun made 110 hits. It could have beaten 40 rifles.
Now, what are the rest of us going to do? Just run up to trees behind Mr. LeClaire and just start blasting away?
Load for it.
No, we are going to run up behind him, take the cover of that same tree, and we are going to load our weapons for our best shot, passing them up to him in a conveyor belt system to maximize our fire against the enemy. We are going to show you exactly what that system looks like. Prêtez le fusil. En jeu. Feu!
I'm gonna hit the wall.
Feu! Yes. Feu! Feu! Feu!
Oh, I died. We know why the French lost.
What I'm going to do now is load and fire with a blank cartridge this musket. So I bring the musket up, lay it reasonably parallel, and I open the pan. I'm going to reach into my cartridge pouch and withdraw a paper cartridge. I'm going to bite the cartridge open. I'm going to spit the remainder of the powder out, pour a portion of the powder into the pan. Now I'm going to cast the musket down so that I can pour the rest of the powder down the barrel and put the paper in, because the paper will stop the powder and ball falling out. Now I'm going to ram it down very tightly. Recover my ramrod, otherwise the weapon is completely useless. Very important to recover the ramrod. Now I take it from half cock to full cock. The weapon is now ready to fire. So I'm going to now raise it to the high port, and with a bit of pressure on the trigger, I'm going to fire the musket.
Alright guys, we're going to try it again. Safety off. Alright, we're stand back. Awesome. Let's see if it'll do it again. Well, that's it.
The soldier himself. The firing rate from a simple bow and arrow can be vastly improved with training. The bows are made of different materials, such as animal horn and sinew layered together to form a laminate. This means that as the bow is pulled, the energy is stored without the bow snapping. In the right hands, even this simple technology can produce rapid fire. The Huns controlled a vast empire that came out of Central Asia in the 4th century AD. It swept across Europe. Conquered soldiers were amazed by the rapid fire of the Huns. For hundreds of years, the Huns' rapid-fire secrets have remained a mystery. But now, in modern-day Hungary, one man has resurrected the ancient art. Lajos Kasai is one of the world's leading archers, and has developed through years of training to fire the bow to the same standards as the legendary lightning strikes of the Huns.
The ancient Huns used to hold their arrows like I do, enabling them to fire arrows one after the other very rapidly.
To prove the effectiveness of the ancient techniques, we've challenged Lajos to see how quickly he can fire 12 arrows. Laios is able to hit every single moving target. 12 arrows in just 17 seconds. But the Huns had a second important resource, the horse. They were a mounted people who used their extraordinary horsemanship to execute lightning attacks and rapid battlefield maneuvers. The challenge now for Laios is to replicate his rate of fire while galloping on horseback at 20 miles an hour. At 22 miles an hour, Laios fires 6 shots in 10 seconds.
The Huns used the bow in a 180-degree arc and reached 300 to 400 yards, able to kill horses and even pierce armor.
These highly mobile lightning assault troops were among the best trained in the ancient world, and the same is true today. Commando and paratrooper units execute assaults deep into enemy territory. The very speed of their advance can cause such troops to become cut off. But even this was not a problem for the Huns' cavalry archers.
By drawing the enemy toward me from behind, I can fire at them backwards. A static archer uses his left brain, but a mounted archer uses his right, the much more intuitive part of the brain.
But their success still relied on the training and expertise of the rider.
Relying on you. You can imagine the monks at Agincourt, can't you? The battle began at approximately as they looked at their iPhone. Well, I will shout loose on the word loose. You time. 60 seconds later, just shout stop. Is that okay? Thank you. Just count how many arrows I shoot in a minute. On your marks. I'm aiming at the arrow on top of his head. Set. Loose. How many did I shoot? 18. Really? You can clap for that. 17.
The countdown begins with a beast of a gun, commonly known as the BAR. Number 10, the Browning Automatic Rifle.
The Browning Automatic Rifle is capable of intense firepower.
It was a concept born out of the entrenched stalemate of World War I. The heavy machine gun had turned that conflict into a mudbath massacre. Armies began searching for new kinds of weapons to break the deadlock. When America entered the war in 1917, the doughboys found themselves lacking in firepower. They had a good rifle in the 1903 Springfield. It was accurate and powerful, but had a slow rate of fire. The solution was a machine gun that was light enough for one man to carry.
Walking fire had been developed by the French with the most hated of all machine guns, the Shosho. And the whole idea was maybe 5 or 6 men armed with a Shosho would march across the battlefield, and as their left foot hit the ground, they would fire a burst. The only thing was, in the meantime, the Germans on the other side with Maxims were just simply mowing them down.
The Shosho was a disaster, unreliable, poorly constructed, and hated by the troops. Clearly, a better gun was needed, and fast.
The United States military went to John Moses Browning. Browning was an absolute genius. and they told them of their need for some kind of automatic weapon that could be carried by infantry troops to increase their firepower at the front. And Browning, within 3 months, came up with what became known as a Browning automatic rifle.
Designed in 1918, this solid chunk of wood and steel weighed 19 pounds and housed a 20-round magazine. Its rate of fire was 330 rounds per minute. And like all of Browning's designs, it was powerful, reliable, and simple to use.
This entirely changed infantry tactics. Now men could move out of their holes, out of the trenches, with some real firepower. The rifle came into use at the very end of the war with a special outfit of American troops. And in fact, the first to use it was led by John Browning's son, Val Browning, on the front. It had a devastating effect. The Germans really came to know this new automatic rifle, the BAR.
When you hear a BAR being fired, there's something about the power of it. It's a very slow, staccato sound. It's boom, 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 boom. When you hear that sound, you know it's a BAR, and you know it's going to do tremendous damage.
The BAR won, but ironically, the war ended before the rifle could fulfill its combat potential. For a time, it seemed the BAR was destined to gather dust in armories across the country. Nothing could have been further from the truth. The weapon soon attracted new customers who carried it to a new, unexpected battleground. Outlaws like Bonnie and Clyde, Vern Miller, and Pretty Boy Floyd didn't want six-shooters when they could have guns that fired dozens of rounds per minute. Police, FBI, and rival gangs were a constant threat to the steady flow of bucks and booze. Automatic weapons like the BAR became the standard.
Law enforcement also used the BAR. They found the BAR was highly effective, especially when they were laying siege to some kind of outlaw hideout. They not only used it in attacking Mara Barker and her son down in Florida at their hideout, but they also ambushed Bonnie and Clyde with BARs on that lonely road in Louisiana.
During World War II, the Model 1918 A2 BAR became the weapon for Marine squads. This new and improved version of the BAR could fire at a rate of 550 rounds per minute, giving the Allies mobile firepower that the Germans and Japanese couldn't match.